Welcome to the Meet the Candidates, a forum for candidates in the November 8th general election for Districts 35, 35A, and 35B. I'm Lonnie McCauley with the Anoka, Blaine, Coon Rapids Area League of Women Voters, which sponsors the League Meet the Candidates. I'd like to introduce now our moderator. This is Gretchen Sable, who lives in the city of Ramsey and who will not be voting in this, and she will also with the League of Women Voters. Gretchen.
Thank you, Lonnie. Hi. So like Lonnie said, I do live in the city of Andover, and I will not be voting in this election. So I don't have a dog in this fight. So I wanted to say that all the candidates for this race were invited to participate in the forum, and they are here with us, so that's good. I also want to say the League of Women Voters does not support or oppose any political parties or candidates for office. I'm sure that the candidates care who you vote for, but we don't. We care that you vote. So that's the important thing for us. And the goal of our forums is to help citizens become informed voters. So we're going to start with candidates' opening statements, followed by questions that have been submitted by the public via our website. Candidates will alternate who answers each question first. Answers are limited to 1 minute, and then we'll conclude with closing statements. So let's get started with opening statements, and we're going to let Jim Abler go first. Jim is on the, are you on the right? I suppose you're on the right, yes. And
that's funny.
Yeah, well, because you're looking at the camera, yes. And then Kari Rierauer is with us on the left. Carrie, I'm sorry. Okay, and I'll use your first names if that's okay.
Yes.
I don't want to be overly familiar, but if you're good with that.
Sure.
Okay. Jim, go ahead.
My mom calls me Jimmy, but Jim is fine. So.
I'm going to do Jim.
Is it 1 minute?
1 minute.
Okay. Well, anyway, I'm privileged to get to serve currently as a senator for the great cities of Coon Rapids, Anoka, Andover, and Ramsey, and I'm excited for the opportunity to do more in Coon Rapids, which is my hometown. We live in a great country, and this democracy we're seeing here in action, and thanks to the League, I'm a proud member of that group, we can actually have these forums. And so I grew up in Anoka, class of 72, a chiropractor 43 years, have 6 sons, 6 grandchildren, married 41 years to a woman with great temperance and patience. And it's really been an experience to be in office. I never thought I would be in office, and here I've been here quite this long, but it'll be interesting to be here tonight talking about the various things, and I hope people pay good attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie?
I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for all you do to support our democracy through voter information and voter registration, and thank you so much for holding this forum tonight. I'd like to share a little bit about who I am with you. I grew up as the youngest of 4 children raised by hardworking parents in small town Wisconsin. I started helping with the family business as far back as I can even remember. By age 12, I had my own paper route, and by age 16, I was bussing tables at Old Country Buffet. I moved to Minnesota to attend college at the U, where I graduated with a bachelor's in biology and a master's in education. I fell in love with Minnesota, and thankfully, so did my future husband, Dan. We bought our first and only home in Coon Rapids, where we've lived for over 20 years, and we raised our 2 daughters here. We couldn't imagine a better place to be. I'm happy to have roots here, and I'm excited to continue serving our community.
Thank you. Now we'd like to ask you about your qualifications and experience to run for office, and we'll start with Carrie.
While teaching in the fall of 2018, it felt to me like staffing levels were so low that it was unsafe for our students. We started that year with 1 counselor for over 1,000 students. For the first time in my career, I had a student attempt suicide. I reached out to other school staff, and no one knew who this student was, and no one had a reentry plan for this student. This experience to me, combined with the divisiveness that I was seeing in politics, affected me greatly and deeply. I wanted to bring compassion back. Around this time, I had a heart-to-heart with my husband. I'll never forget what he said to me. He said, "If you want to make a bigger difference, you need to grow your circle of influence." I wanted to bring a focus back on the people to our local government, and serving on city council has showed me we can get things done by working together. I saw what happened the last legislative session with $9 billion on the table. I'll make a difference.
Jim?
Well, thank you. I'm a collaborator. I work with people. I've got 43 years, my 40 is mixed up. We're 43 years in practice working with patients in a conservative way to help them get well from the inside out. And I'm taking that same approach to the Capitol to work with everybody. The current incumbent here is Senator John Hoffman, and we have become the best of friends. We both get in trouble for being too good of friends with the opposite parties, but that's what people want. That's what I bring, and that's what I can't do it much different. Because that's what we need to get things done, is actually listening, working together, cooperating, learning. And as I've gone around the district now, I've been to 13,400 doors. It's been a real experience. I'm way in more touch with the district now. And the concerns and comments from the people have just helped me grow and evolve to even serve better. So thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is an important, timely topic. Would you vote in favor of a constitutional amendment banning abortion in Minnesota? If so, would you allow for exceptions in the case of rape or incest? And we'll start with Jim.
Yeah, thank you. 1 minute to solve this one. This is the subject of much discussion at the doors and around, and I respect it all. My voting record is clear. I respect the woman, and I always respect the life inside of her. And there has to be a way to create a dialogue better than what we have. I'm going to tell you a little story of something that happened yesterday, and I don't know if an amendment is the answer, so that's just to get at the meat of it. But I met a man who is well known in this community, and we happened to mention this topic is coming up, and he says, oh, well, I would have been in a landfill. My mom was a 15-year-old girl, and if they would have had abortions back then, and I can't get away from the sense of that. I didn't ask for it. This man is so well known as a community leader, and so it's not it's let's find a way to respect both the parties here, and I think we can make a difference about that.
Thank you, Jim. Carrie?
There's no doubt in this election, a woman's right to privacy and reproductive freedom is under threat. I believe the choice to have an abortion is profoundly difficult and personal, but it is ultimately a decision every woman deserves to make privately, safely, and legally with their family and their healthcare provider. Government should not be making this decision for them. I'll always work to defend this crucial right for the women of Minnesota and so that my daughters do not have less rights than I have. This is an issue where there's a defined and sharp contrast between myself and Senator Abler. He has a 0% rating from Planned Parenthood and an F from Pro-Choice Minnesota. He's on the record, the only exception to allow for an abortion is to save the life of a mother. So he said, respect the woman, but there's no exception for rape, incest, or rape via incest of a 10-year-old child. This view is too extreme for Minnesota, and it's out of step with most Minnesotans.
Thank you. The next question, would you support increased gun control measures such as red flag laws and universal background checks? And we'll start with Carrie.
I'm a Moms Demand Action gun sense candidate because I support common sense gun safety. In contrast, my opponent has over a 90% rating from the NRA. I support universal background checks for purchasing guns. My opponent has voted against that. I support a red flag bill, which is also supported by law enforcement, so that when someone posts all over social media they're going to shoot up a school, law enforcement hands are not tied. My opponent voted against this. Whether you're at school or at the grocery store, every single Minnesotan deserves to feel safe in their community. We must take action on proven solutions to prevent gun violence and increase gun safety. But the current Senate majority won't even allow these bills to come to the floor. It's time for change. There are policies we can pass today that will reduce crime and prevent gun violence, but only if we elect people who will actually get the work done. I will work for a safer community for all.
Jim?
Well, it's nice we're tackling these two really challenging questions right off the bat. And nobody is comfortable with gun violence, be it in the city, be it in a school, be it in a person taking their life. Nobody is comfortable with that. It's not somebody cares and somebody doesn't, but the solutions actually have to work. Colorado has a red flag law that 60% of the sheriffs will not enforce because they fear for the life of their officers. So it actually has to work. Uvalde happened and just grieved all of us. I talked to the superintendent of Anoka. I happened to be at a gathering right around that time. And he was so sad that he and his crew couldn't have a chance to meet that young man and try to intervene somehow. And I think that Facebook maybe should help us find those folks and whoever else. But what he would like to have is $1 million to put 200,000 into having an officer for every major school and more help with the mental health at the district. And it's not just a mental health thing, but that was his passion and the cry of his heart.
Thank you, Jim. What should be the legislature's role, if any, in determining school curriculum and what is taught in classrooms throughout the state? Jim?
Actually, I think that it really shouldn't have a role in an ideal world. Should be the school boards. What we have now is a very top-heavy system-led, the governor, whoever they are, appoint their particular commissioner. They hand down edicts. The federal government, we take a little bit of money from them by ratio, and they have all kinds of rules. And we have a school board that's really great in our district and across the state, and they are barely empowered to do very much. And even less empowered are the teachers. And I don't know what on earth we're thinking, letting the feds and the state people, fine individuals, overrule the ability of our teachers and the school boards to work together to best educate the students of their particular locale. Minnesota is not homogeneous. There's differences between every aspect of it, and those could be best addressed by the people that are closely involved. Legislature, I suppose, is a fail-safe, but we're not the right solution for that.
Thank you. Carrie?
So parents want their kids to have a caring, competent teacher. They want a safe, welcoming building with the resources they need. They don't want government intrusion into every aspect of what happens in a classroom. There is a process where our state determines the academic standards, but this isn't a top-down approach as Senator Abler has suggested. A committee reviews these and revises them every 10 years, and anyone can apply to be on this academic standards committees. And they always include parents and community members. And then from those academic standards, the local school districts do determine the curriculum based on them. As a teacher who's worked directly in the classroom with students across 20 years, I believe the goal of the legislature should be to support our students, support our educators, and our public schools. I believe students and educators know what is needed more than career politicians. We must ensure the legislature sustainably funds our schools. Our students' learning, achievement, and futures depend on this.
Thank you very much. The next question, what is your stance on marijuana legalization in Minnesota? And we're going to start out with Carrie this time.
So I support legalization, regulation, and taxation on marijuana. My opponent does not. He actually accidentally legalized a form of THC derived from hemp with no regulation and no taxation, leaving cities scrambling to come up with regulations. But it was unintentional. He does not support legalization. And it was unintentional because he didn't fully read the bill. When questioned, he stated that we should repeal this right away. This is not how I would lead. I would read the bills, I would do my research, I would legalize marijuana the right way with regulation and taxation.
Thank you. Jim, do you want to do that one now?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, smoke them if you got them. So this has been a long-standing question, and just ironically, I have a reputation of reading more bills than anybody, so some are complex. But so marijuana is not a nothing drug. I have a history of drug use myself in my early days, and I'm happy I survived. Some of my friends did not. And if you think we can just walk into legalization, which is going to happen, a lot of people want it. They think it's a great idea. They, tax money. But there's so many issues about highway safety. You can't test for it when you're intoxicated. What happens at work? Who can use it? Who can on their job? And so it needs to be done thoughtfully with engagement with people who are concerned, with people who are not concerned, and not just run through in some casual bill that will get us some amazing amount of tax money. Many states that have legalized it have way more costs in their drug treatment programs, and so you better be aware of what you're asking for, because I think you're going to get it.
Thank you very much. We're going to shift to an environmental question now. What measures do you favor to combat climate change? And Jim's up first.
Well, thank you. And I've long time supported greater renewables. Early on, 25 by 25 was the Governor Plenty proposal, and we've exceeded that. I've supported Conservation Minnesota's idea. I'm a member of the Sierra Club. They put out, Conservation Minnesota put out, or Environmental Partnership put out this little deal full of ideas, but it has to be done in a dialogue way, in a collaborative way. There was a lot of angst about the clean car rules from California, which may be fine rules, but Minnesota is not California. And now they said that there's no gas engines in California after 2035, which could be done by rule now in Minnesota. And so, to me, that's actually not the proper way to use your power. You should work with the legislature, with the groups, have a dialogue, bring people together, agree, and then you have something that will stand the test of time, like the early standards did, like the where we're going now is going to. And strong supporter. We need storage. When we get storage, we can just bar the door and go great guns on renewables.
Okay, thank you. Carrie, do you need me to repeat the question, or are you good?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you. So Senator Abler mentioned he's a member of the Sierra Club. I would just like to mention that I am endorsed by the Sierra Club along with the Climate Cabinet. I have hope that we will lead on climate in Minnesota, just as we led the Midwest on cleaning up our air and water. As your senator, I will support funding for clean energy initiatives in our communities. I will also support energy efficiency updates for our residents, our businesses, and our industries. These will improve our energy resiliency, boost local economies, and save money over the long term. So these are a win-win. In contrast, my opponent voted against increasing the state's effort to combat climate change. He voted to strip the state's authority to regulate clean air along with his caucus. As your senator and as a former science teacher, I am committed to our environment, and I will work to mitigate climate change for today and for our future generations.
Thank you very much. Now we have a money question. What should be Minnesota's spending priorities in the next biennium? And we'll start off with Carrie.
So one of the best parts of campaigning is talking directly to so many residents of the community, and they are hurting from inflation. The increased costs of gas and groceries is a struggle. Despite this, during the most recent legislative session, my opponent voted to give around $600 million more in tax cuts to businesses than individuals. We absolutely can and should be helping our workers, our families, and our seniors. We have over a $9 billion surplus that should have been used to help people now. A compromise was made between the House and the Senate to give $4 billion in tax breaks, $4 billion to sustain the systems that we rely on daily, from our schools to our nursing homes to healthcare. But the work didn't get done. The current Senate majority, of which my opponent is a member, won't come back for a special session. That puts politics over people. It's time for change. I'll get the work done for Minnesotans. I'll ease the burden on your family budget because people come first, not the next election.
Thank you, Jim.
Well, thanks. It was quite a session, and we worked very hard. My area was the area of disability and human services and nursing homes. And actually, John and I led the way to create a bipartisan solution, which is the one we still should do. I agreed with the compromise, the 4-4-4 compromise. Supported it. I supported a special session from the very beginning to go back, because I think we should get our work done. There's a lot of players when it comes to how you resolve the end of a session. But at the end, there's mostly 4 people sitting in a room, and I get to just bang on the door and say, could you please work this out? And so the power of a mid-level member is sometimes overestimated, but I kept pushing and still am. Education's an issue. We need to make sure we shore that up, just my list of things. Long-term care issues with nursing homes and group homes, they are in a state of collapse. Workforce is in a shambles following the COVID thing. We've got to find a way to train and woo more people in who are sitting home. And law enforcement, and just want to throw in clean water as well, that I have always been strongly committed to.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
We're going to look at an election question now, because we're League of Women Voters and we care about elections. What measures would you support to improve and secure elections and voting in Minnesota? And we'll start with Jim.
Well, most people trust, but some do not. And I think it's important to listen to those who trust and those who do not and see what they think may be. For me, this isn't my area where I spend most of my time, but I just wondered why we have ballot boxes in the first place. I mean, we have the mail. I just never comprehend. And then there's a big, hoo-ha about all that and what happened. And I think as a whole, Minnesota tries really hard. But I think even every little thing that comes up that's a minor issue should be addressed thoroughly. It is hard to solve election issues in a bipartisan way because, very frankly, each side wants to see how they're going to do in the deal, and if they're comfortable that it will help them more than it hurts them, then they're willing to do it. And they're not very particularly nice at all to the third parties. So that's how hard it is to actually do something. There's a lot of talk, but I think if the people say we really need to do something and it's thoughtful, we can get it done, and not just arrive at impasse, which is what we do year after year with the small meetings.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Carrie?
Yeah. So Minnesota is a leader in voter turnout, election reform, and ballot integrity. Our elections in Minnesota are secure. We ensure that every ballot is properly cast and properly counted. In fact, the Minnesota Secretary of State has devoted significant resources since 2015 to ensure the security of our systems. People who instill distrust in our democratic elections hurt our democracy. Senator Abler voted to make it more difficult for Minnesotans to vote by voting against automatic voter registration and against protections for the right to vote. Senator Abler has voted to sow distrust in our elections by voting against a bill affirming that the individual with the most votes wins the election. As your senator, I will stand up for ensuring your right to vote, and I will stand up for secure, fair, and honest elections.
Thank you very much. So now it's time for closing statements, which is a time for you guys to kind of wrap up and say what you want to say. So we'll start with Carrie.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for providing our voters with balanced information, for setting up these forums, and it will help the residents of our community learn about all the candidates. I'd like to thank all of you who've taken the time to watch this forum. I appreciate your activism in your government. I appreciate voting. These are the fundamentals of our great democracy. I would like to ask you for your vote. By voting for me, you will have someone who will put people first, not the next election. You will have someone who will protect a woman's right to choose and who will do the work to improve public safety and reduce gun violence. Please connect with me at kariformn.com, KARIFORMN.com. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to answer any questions you have. Know that I will come to work prepared and ready. I will read the bills. I will never walk away from an opportunity to compromise for the benefit of the people in my district and the people of Minnesota. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carrie. Jim?
Well, thanks, and I want to thank the viewers at home and the few people who are allowed to be in the room for being a part of this. Our democracy is something literally people have died for to appreciate the value of and to make it possible for us. And as I go around, I encourage young adults to vote. I don't know if I'm gonna. Please do. People need to stay engaged. I've been privileged to serve these 8 terms in the House and 3 in the Senate and developed a reputation as being a collaborator, a listener, a reader, getting things done, focusing on the topic at hand, and seldom on any electoral matters, to my peril. I got a primary out of one of them. And so I promise to keep doing the same. I make 3 promises to people: work hard, do my best, and always tell the truth. And you do have a choice. I'll appreciate your vote. And my cell is on 13,000 of your doors, and I publish it everywhere. So if you want to get a hold of me, please do. JimAbler.com is a website. In the meantime, God bless you all, and God bless our amazing state and our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I want to continue the thanking by thanking you candidates for being here tonight and speaking to voters about the issues and also for running for Senate District 35. That's a big deal. Stepping up and running is a big deal. And I want to thank the viewers as well for their interest in becoming informed voters. They'll find links to all these forums on our LWABC website as we move through this election season. And of course, I want to say it's really important that we vote. You have many options for voting. You can request an absentee ballot on the Secretary of State's website. You can go to mnvotes.org or go to your City Hall or Anoka County Elections Office to vote anytime once early voting begins on September 23rd. If you need to register to vote or to update your registration, you can do that online or when you go to vote. So there's, just go vote. It's easy and it's your duty. So make your voice heard in a general election by voting on or before November 8th. Thank you and happy voting.